Today, we are looking into the current trending cards that are beating the meta, as well as other ongoing patterns in today's episode of Meta Trends. Hey guys, this is Tombox, and I want to start things off with a question. Are people over-preparing themselves for Kash tier and under-preparing themselves for everything else? You know what? Based off of recent top cut results, it sure seems to look that way. I mean, the Kash tier top cuts are way down now in comparison, and there's definitely a lot more variety going on, and that's proven results from YCS Lima. It's also proven around the globe in most of the regional events that happened over the past weekend. I guess the other question is, does it really make sense to keep on heavily targeting against Kash tier? And the obvious answer is yes, you should still hit them because they are the deck that defines the format. And if you loosen your grip against them, you're going to get dominated because that's the one deck that really doesn't allow other people to play. Okay, so with that said, people are always trying to find the next tech, the overlapping tech, so that you can shove it in to beat Kash tier, but it needs to also work with something else. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the trending cards that are being used for all the other matchups. Let's start off by looking at the top decks right now. Now, I'm not going to go over every single deck, but generally speaking, Kash tier branded Despia, Labyrinth, Sprites, and all of its variants, Naturia, Runic, Plunder Patrol, every variant of that, Dark World, and Traptrix would generally be considered some of the best decks out there. I guess you can shove in Salamangreat in there if you really want to, but more or less, the format is catered towards these 8 decks. And so let's get on with our very first card, Mystic Mine for branded Despia, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. What does it do? In terms of its card effect, all level 6 or higher special summon monster on the field cannot activate their effects or declare attacks, which is huge. Essentially, it is a Mystic Mine, and against branded Despia, this is a death sentence, because they do not naturally have a lot of back removal unless they're playing Bestial with branded Beast to pop cards. But outside of that, the entire extra deck lineup can't touch this card as long as you have it face up. They can't go Guardian Chimera because it's not going to activate. It's going to be stuck. And that's why this card is very scary. Even when they give you a Gimmick Puppet, and if you set this card and just activate it against them, you're not going to die. You're just going to deck your opponent out, essentially. If you're playing Runic, just start decking out right now because they have nothing else better to do. Yeah, it is really, really rough, and it causes them to actually side poorly because they need to side back row removal for this card in particular. This is the one floodgate that would shut down a branded Despia deck and play through your Gimmick Puppet. And that card, Gimmick Puppet doesn't really have much counter, to be honest. It is one of the more problematic cards of the format. But what about the overlap? What about Kash tier? I mean, Kash tier runs a ton of level 6 or higher monsters, namely just the entire deck. So how good is it against them? It's mediocre at best. There's a lot of ways to actually play out of this, since this thing only affects, say, level 6 or higher monsters. So upon the special summon, say, a Unicorn, you flip this card face up, there's multiple ways for them to play through it. If they have a Birth and another normal summon, okay, that's going to play right through it. If they have, say, a Scareclaw Kash tier in hand and one of the extender monsters, they can jump right out. Riseheart can jump right out, and once they have Riseheart and they can activate Riseheart to just bump up its level, you can go into rank 7, you can go into Dark Arm, Dragon of Annihilation, and just pop this card, or just find your way into a Zeus play and wipe the rest of the board. So you probably need to pair this card with a D barrier and call Xyz. Once you call the Xyz, the game's done because everything is going to basically have a level at that point. And you're definitely not going to die because none of the monsters can attack. So that also makes it so that you're pretty safe from it getting banished by, say, like Fenrir. All right. But you still have to be aware of the extract monsters, which are XC. So that's, the fair coverage I'm going to give you guys. There are ways to extend. So I don't know if I would recommend this. And if you're playing Kash tier, I don't think you want to play this card anyway, unless you plan on popping by putting a Shangri-Era and getting Raceoff to pop it off yourself. Anyways, let's move on to the next card. The next trending card, or rather a group of cards, are kaijus, and more specifically, just main decking kaijus. I can tell you from personal experience that main decking the kaiju has made a lot of matchups a lot easier, like infinitely easier. Because first of all, a Riseheart Rush, they are just going to drop your Riseheart. Maybe they'll have a Lance in the back, and some people are even opting to play Ego Booster because it gives you even more immunity to stuff, and that's even better, right? Make him just unaffected by stuff, and sometimes even protecting it from being destroyed by battle, which is a little ridiculous if you can get the 3 spells in the grave. If you start with a pot, you can get there. So what about, taking out that card just straight up with a kaiju? So yeah, you don't have to eat, a very difficult game on, even if you lose the die roll. Yes, it is technically a going second card, and there's always the debate, do I use Imperm or do I use Chalice? But you have to also consider that Dragoon is also becoming more and more popular, and that's a card that Imperm can't touch, Chalice can't touch, and if you want to use Droplet, that's cool, but the problem with using Droplet is you can't Droplet in a Rise Heart. There's like a limitation on that because you can't pay the cost for Droplet. So Kaiju kind of automatically becomes one of the easier ones. If you can slow down the game a little bit so that you just don't die in 2 turns, then definitely you can use the Kaiju. It's definitely getting a lot better. And there's other matchups you can use it against. Like if you're playing against Traptrix, you can take out the Sarah, which is also pretty awesome. You can also use it to take out Toads from Sprites. There's just free removal. Consider it as a non-respondable Forbidden Chalice that makes their monster 22 or 24, depending on which Kaiju you're using. Now, before I continue with the other 3 cards I want to talk about, I give a shout out to MSTmerch.com. Check out MSTmerch.com. We have, of course, our Carbon Series sleeves, blacks. They have been kicking off. I really appreciate you guys for doing so. Yes, we have sold out of the Ulti Instinct sleeves, but, new shipments are coming. It's going to take a little bit, and it's going to come with a brand new sleeve in the future. So check out MSTmerch.com. And some of you guys have been asking, hey, do those mats, do they come with zones? And the answer is, but if you guys want to help support, the channel here, support myself, Nishi, and the rest of the crew here, check out MSTmerch.com. You guys won't regret it, especially with those beautiful sleeves, protectors, and if you want to sort your collection, box dividers. And let's get back to it. The third card picking up steam in the side deck is Unending Nightmare. This card is very, very strong, and it does carry a lot of overlap. If you look at the current format, there's a lot of cards that need to stay face up. But let's take a look at Kashtira first. Kashtira has the field spell, Birth, and the preparations, and if this one card can take care of all of them, that kills off a lot of the follow-up. Of course, it's not invincible. They have the Kashtira Fenrir. If they already open with Theosis, they can just keep playing, still get to the Arise Heart, and then if they get the Arise Heart, this card's probably the first to go. It is a very problematic card, but then again, this one card can counter so much as long as you can pair with a second card. Your opponent's probably going to have a lot of problem trying to break the board, especially when they're playing Kash. But where's the overlap? You can't just use this card. We have prepared for Kash, now we got to prepare for the other matchup. And this card works pretty decently against anything that requires continuous spells and traps or field spells. So first deck that comes to mind, Labyrinth. Sure, they don't exactly have the best back row removal, and most of it comes from Dogmatic Punishment, dumping the Entis, and popping a generic card. Okay, makes sense. But when it comes to taking out their floodgates, this is kind of second to none. I mean, if they have multiple floodgates where they're trying to skill drain you and shut you out with a summon-based floodgate, this card can just pop both, and that can really prove to have a lot of value in the long run. So it's pretty decent. But of course, you might run into some issues where they're just playing a bunch of big welcome Labyrinth, and yeah, Lady's not exactly the easiest monster to kill. And also you can use it to take care of Runic Fountain. Sure, they can use Hugin to protect, but what's preventing you from activating the card again? Just beware of Destruction. Destruction will take care of the problem. And as for any Adventure Package, Trap Gardens, Adventure Package, you can take out the Faithful Adventure, and Trap Gardens, you can just prevent them from summoning an additional monster. Not that that was an issue already, but there's just additional applications just in case. Next, I want to talk about hand traps that have been spotted in people's main decks, and are they really that good, or are they just over preparation for Kashtira? We're talking about Nibiru, Drone Lockbird, and Artifact Lancia. All these cards are really good against, Kashtira, but are they good against the other matchups? So I kind of want to bring them into, the context of what we're talking about. So against Kashtira, yeah, all these cards are really, really good. What about Branded Despia? You're not going to land the Nibiru if they're going to have a Dragoon on board, right? And it's really hard to negate that Dragoon. It's not like you're going to imperm. Lancia might do a little bit of damage in terms of, hey, I prevented your Mirror Jade from banishing my card, stopped you from, fusing with Branded and Red. There's a couple of things here and there that would have impact with Lancia. Droll is just mediocre because they can just Branded opening really early on, and even if you do Droll them, Branded Fusion's already added to hand. Labyrinth, I think only Droll. I mean, when they play a pot card, maybe, then you can Droll them and prevent maybe Ariane from doing something. But aside from that, it's very, very, very limiting, and it's very difficult because half the time when they're trying to add cards, it's on your own turn, and you don't really want to Droll your own self. So yeah, limited. Against sprites, Nibiru can basically get negated by Sprite Red, so usually we don't even do that. I mean, that's just established from like the previous format, you know, during the early Pote format. But Droll can stop the blue, the jet, the pot, you know, whatever that they start with, it does hurt them, okay? Against the Cherry Runic, Droll and Lockbird hurts severely, especially after like maybe a single Runic tip, and that's more or less enough to just shut down everything. Sacred Trees can't search, you can't draw with Fountain, there's a lot of limitations there. Lancey is also pretty decent as well because it prevents them from activating any of the Runic cards on their own turn if they're trying to get their main effect aside from the summoning. So yeah, it completely limits that because they have to be able to banish to use it. And even Nibiru, although Nibiru again is situational, even against Kashtira it's kind of weird. It's situational. Even against Nashura Runic it's situational. If they start with Mold Cricket and they try to, like, you know, work their way in, there might be a window where Baron's not on the field and they've hit 5 summons right before they got there. So that is a limitation. And sometimes they won't even have the Sunflower. But even if they do put up a Sunflower, if they put up Sunflower before they put up Camilla, then you can just try to drop Nibiru there, and you can just get rid of some of the more problematic cards. Plunder Patrol, I don't think there's any of these are effective against them at all. Very, very, very minimal. It's like Droll is like the best card because there's a lot of searching. Dark World, Droll is really good. Nibiru, maybe if they don't get, you know, Fusion Graph out. Trap Tricks, you can Droll them maybe on a pot card, maybe on Myrmilio, maybe on the Summon of Pitika. That's really about it. Everyone else, Nibiru, don't even expect Nibiru. You're gonna get Gravedigger, Trap Hole, and take 2,000. So is it still worth main decking some of these cards, especially just so that you can focus against Kashtira? And the answer is, if your representation of Kashtira is really, really high, then yes, you should still probably main deck some of these cards. It's more so about, you know, dealing with what is represented the most rather than dealing with the infinite variety out there. This last card is a bit of a personal experimentation, but I want to share with you guys my results so you guys maybe try it out. It's Sales Ban. I talked about it on Twitter. There's a lot of funny things that you can do with this card that can help you regain a little bit of tempo. It was really stupid at first. I played it as a joke. I'm like, I'm going to call Nibiru and do 5 zone lock. And then I did exactly that, and essentially I have a 4-card hand that won me the game, and they did have a Nibiru and called me like a lucky sack. Sure, that's fine too. Another funny one was that when opponent went first, they played pot, added a Solemn Judgment into hand, so then I decided to call Solemn Judgment and then even lead for the rest of the entire board. Yeah, that was also neat. Baited a Baron, that was hilarious, because they just let it go. They just don't want to activate it because it would be a waste of the negation. But then I got to clear the entire board as well. So it's such a weird tempo-based card. And the Mirror Jade one was also very funny. I didn't get to kill my opponent, but I decided to go with, like, just leave all my Kashtira monsters on the field with a Birth face up, and I'm not sure if they have a proper follow-up after that because everything is basically getting banished at that point. Yeah, it was a weird tempo card. You guys can definitely try it out yourselves. Well, that's all I got for this video, guys. Tomorrow's video is going to be a live duel, so expect it to be longer. It's going to be an epic match between myself and one very famous Team Samurai X1. Yes, he came to visit me. Actually, I think specifically with the purpose to visit me. And no one else really does that, so you know what? He's a real one out there. You know, thanks for coming by. And if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button if you guys learned a thing or two. You know, keep up with the meta. Hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.